President Trump's first day in office could shake up the housing market more than we could have imagined. With emergency executive orders aimed at tackling the high prices of labor and housing and helping boost up supply, this could be an interesting 2025. But are these changes a good thing or a bad thing? In this video, I'm gonna go over the pros and the cons of what Trump claims he's going to do. We're not picking sides here. I'm just sticking with what he said he's going to do and the possible repercussions that will have on the real estate industry. All right, let's dig into an overview of his executive orders, specifically as it pertains to the housing market.
Could you imagine Biden doing this? I don't think so. I don't think so.
The main thing that Trump is going after is the regulations and the cost of those regulations to build new houses. And this is one of the biggest hidden culprits that people don't know about when it comes to the price of real estate, specifically new home prices. And new home prices do tend to set the price for houses that have already been lived in or reused houses when they're up for sale again in the retail market. A study recently came out that about 25% of the cost, or around $100,000 of every new home built across America, is coming from the regulations that the government puts on those houses. So we're not talking labor, we're not talking materials or supply, we're talking that the regulations and all the red tape around building new houses costs almost $100,000 per house. So naturally, if he can cut back some of that regulation and lower the cost of regulation, that should have a trickle-down effect of lowering the cost and therefore the price of a new home. And what's maybe even crazier is multifamilies have an estimate of 40% of the cost to build a multifamily goes all into regulations and permits that the government's put on those builds. Another policy that was discussed was allowing federal land to be built on by home builders and multifamily builders. This is something that was brought up several months ago by Trump and Harris when they were battling for the presidency. So it's not a new thing, but he is pushing it forward to actually be enacted. All right, let's go over the pros and the cons of doing what Trump's talking about doing. And we're even gonna add in a little bit of a twist because some of the other policies he's talking about implementing, not pertaining to the housing market, could and probably will have a huge effect on the housing market. So we got some pros, some cons, and when it all settles out, will it be a net positive, a net negative, or a net neutral? According to many studies, including one by Realtor.com, we are about 4 million houses short in the United States just to keep up with the current demand. Not even talking about future demands as the population grows, the current demand to have an even level housing market would be, snap your fingers, and 4 million houses being built. Unfortunately, you can't snap your fingers and build houses. There's a lot that goes in that between the regulation, the planning, the zoning, as well as the actual building of the properties with the labor and the supplies and logistics of everything. It's not something that can happen overnight, and we seem to keep getting further and further behind. One way to help that would be selling or giving federal land to real estate investors and developers so their cost basis is lower, so they're not having to purchase land for $100,000 or $200,000 an acre. They're able to purchase it for less or for free, which should reduce the overall price of that house. Of course, we have to keep an eye on some of the builders, so decreasing the cost basis doesn't just double their margins and they ask the same end price. We need a reduction of price if the input costs are low. So that is definitely a positive if more land and cheaper land is available for builders to be built on. Deregulating the construction costs is obviously a pro. I don't know if that needs to be said or not, but I'm gonna say it. If it costs 10, 20, 30% less to build a house because of all the regulations and all the red tape being cut, that will in turn reduce the end cost of that building and therefore will reduce the price. And as we build more homes and more red tape is cut, it should be able to happen faster and cheaper and more houses on the market for more affordable prices. Another pro would be it would stimulate the job economy. It is estimated that if they're able to cut back on all this red tape and really put the foot on the gas as far as building houses goes without too many speed bumps or red tape, that would add about 200,000 jobs to the overall economy with everything that would go along with ramping up of building of new houses. As new houses are being built, there are so many different trades and so many different jobs that are affected beyond all of the jobs that go into building the house. When new neighborhoods go in, we tend to get new roads, new hospitals, new grocery stores, new restaurants, and so on and so on. The ripple effects of a non-populated area quickly becoming a populated area are ginormous. It is unclear because not every single I has been dotted and T has been crossed in this plan, but there has been talks about a federal credit or subsidy to incentivize first-time home buyers because they are the ones that are being hardest hit right now. If somebody has a house that they own and there's potentially tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity in that house, they can use that equity from their current house to put into their new house and maybe afford a house that's a little bit more expensive. If somebody's looking to buy their very first house, they don't have a ton of equity in a house that they can transfer over to their new house. So getting some credits or subsidies for these first-time home buyers could potentially be huge. Before we get into the cons and potential setbacks of Trump's plan, I do want to emphasize the biggest issue we have with house prices right now is the lack of supply. If we're able to build more houses and allow for more people to enter into the house buying arena, that will naturally lower the prices. Think about it. If there's 10 houses for sale in the neighborhood and there's 100 people looking, that is potentially a situation for multiple bids and the price will go up. However, if you're able to increase the number of houses to 50 houses, that will mean that there's more opportunities for people to buy the house that they want, not the house that they have to buy, and the prices should stabilize. All right, let's get into some of the discussed potential drawbacks of Trump's plan. The first would be on giving some federal land for houses to be built on with less regulation. There are some environmentalists that think this would have a negative long-term effect, especially if there's less regulation. Now, I don't think it's going to be one of those old cartoons where there's a bunch of bulldozers spouting out black smoke and just trampling over animals and trees and woods and creeks. There are regulations that would stay into effect, but I kind of do see the point, although I don't think this is a very strong one. Number two would be state and local resistance. While the president and the federal government can lift some of the federal regulations, a lot of this is done on a state and local level. They can't really control what elected officials do in a specific city or specific state as far as regulations go. So it's not like California would all of a sudden be this blue ocean where you could build whatever you wanted without anybody's oversight. It would reduce some of the red tape, but each city and county is going to have their own red tape that won't really be affected by this overall federal plan. However, hopefully a lot of them would fall in line and see the benefits of pulling back some regulation. Another potential con, which I think is interesting, is all of this rapid deregulation could throw a monkey wrench in the real estate industry. All of these changes, more supply, coupled with more demand, less regulation, more people getting into the game, along with some tax credits and potential subsidies, could be a melting pot for a disaster. Nobody can predict, even with AI, all the effects of all of those things happening at one time. Could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, who knows, but it is a bit of an unknown. There is some speculation that in some of these areas that are allowed to build quickly, where there wasn't anything being built before, could cause a little bit of a bubble. However, that would be localized, it wouldn't be national. All right, we've covered the pros and cons a little bit. Now let me talk about some other things that Trump has talked about doing or is actually doing that may have a ripple effect on this plan specifically for the housing market. He has already increased tariffs in North America and is planning to do that around the world. On the surface, that does sound like a good thing. We are keeping more purchasing and supplying local, and the government is getting more money from other countries with tariffs. That probably will increase the price of those materials, the price of whatever is being shipped into the United States. So maybe some regulation is cut and maybe some cost is cut over here, but potentially the cost of metal or copper or wood or something else shipped into the United States will go up, which would kind of offset some of the regulation, if that makes sense. Another big thing that Trump has talked about throughout his election and presidency is mass deportation, deporting illegal immigrants. You can pick your sides there. However, it is a fact, a lot of these illegal immigrants are the labor that goes into building, and that labor tends to be pretty inexpensive. So if there are millions of our labor force being shipped out of this country, the backfill of that may be a bit more expensive, which again could offset some of the regulatory costs. Overall, it's a huge balancing act that no one has been able to figure out in the past 8 to 9 years since we figured out we have a huge supply issue because we didn't build any houses as a country from 2008 to 2014. That's the reason we're behind, and the presidents and the people in the power over the past 8 years have not been able to figure it out. I do hope that we will see some traction over the next few years to help regulate the real estate industry a bit, but who knows? Let me know in the comments section if you learned something and you appreciate this unbiased thought model that I just put us through on some of the pros and the cons of what's probably going to happen and what potentially could happen. Make sure to subscribe to this channel, hit that like button. I come out with real estate content where I teach and train you on a weekly basis and occasionally do videos like this. Hit that like button and check out this video over here to learn more about real estate. See you on the next one.